We are Legally Sis. Welcome to our podcast.
The information provided in the show is for general informational purposes only and should not be construed as legal advice on any subject matter. No attorney-client relationship is created between you and Duran Schultz Law.
Hi, welcome to Legally Sis. I'm Adeni Wen.
And I'm Attorney March. Welcome to our podcast. In this episode, we will be discussing about blacklisting and lifting of a blacklist order.
Alright. So, what is a blacklist?
Okay. A blacklist is a situation wherein the Philippines would exclude you from either entry or will deport you because of certain grounds, as stated in our Philippine Immigration Act.
This refers to a foreigner.
Definitely foreigners, because you can't deport Filipinos. You are a Filipino, there's the only way is you'll be staying in the Philippines. If you committed a crime, then that's a different process. More like you'll go to jail for that.
Okay. Who issues blacklist order?
Okay, that would be the Bureau of Immigration. And the Bureau of Immigration would have officers at the port of entry, for example, at the airports. If there are reasons for the foreigner to be banned or excluded from entry, then right there and there, the Bureau of Immigration officers will issue the blacklist or the order of exclusion.
Okay. What's the common grounds for blacklist?
Yeah, there are a lot of grounds for blacklisting, but those that we've seen are those that are unruly behavior, disrespectful to the Bureau of Immigration officers, those that are indigent, looks like they cannot pay when they want to enter the Philippines, those that are here in the Philippines but have failed to pay for their tourist visas. They've been overstaying for 6 months or more than 6 months. Those with criminal offenses outside of the country, meaning they are fugitive from justice. Those that defrauded their creditors. It can also be as wide as you are, you have a contagious disease, and there's a reason for you to be excluded in the Philippines.
So, when a foreigner who wants to enter in the Philippines, say he got a blacklist order at the time of when he enters the Philippines or at the port of the entry, what is the usual scenario there that happens?
So, for example, you are at the Philippine airport. You landed from the airplane, right? And you are presenting your passport before the Philippine immigration officer, and you are drunk, right? The immigration officer will not allow you to enter the Philippines. You will be given an order of exclusion already. With that, that means you are required to get the next available flight outside of the country.
Then go back to
wherever you come from.
Is blacklist the same as being banned in the Philippines?
Correct. Yep. If you have a blacklist order, you cannot come to the Philippines anymore unless that blacklist order has been lifted.
All right. So what is the procedure when a foreigner has been issued a blacklist order? What can he do in order for that to be lifted and he wants to enter the Philippines?
Okay, the first thing is you have to check what type or what is the gravity of the blacklist, the reason for the blacklisting. Because there are different gravities. Is it a light offense, a medium offense? With those type of offenses, there is a cooling period, meaning a time frame before you can ask the Bureau of Immigration to lift that blacklist. For example, if you are just incompetent, the time frame would just be 3 months from the time the blacklist has been implemented and left the country. You can wait for a minimum of 3 months before you can ask for the lifting. For example, you are an indigent or you are known to be a prostitute and you are excluded from entering the Philippines or asked to be deported, then you have to wait for 12 months before you can ask for your blacklist to be lifted. So once you are sure where you fall in the reason for exclusion, then you wait for that period before you can ask or file for a lifting of your blacklist. And then when you file for the lifting of the blacklist, your letter should include the reasons why the blacklist should be lifted. And that would depend on the charge that was assessed against you. For example, you were blacklisted because you are indigent. You haven't been paying for your tourist visa fees while you were in the Philippines. Then when you convince the Philippine government or the Bureau of Immigration to lift it, you should say that you will no longer be an indigent, or you will be able to pay for your tourist visa fees when you stay in the Philippines. How do you show that? Well, proof of financial capacity. Do you have a house? Do you have a bank account? Is there substantial amount of money? Do you have work? How much is that? You have pension, and all those proof of being able to pay or sustain your lifestyle or your life in the Philippines. You have to attach that and then apply for your lifting of blacklist before the Bureau of Immigration. If your reason to be blacklisted is being unruly, or you disrespected a Bureau of Immigration officer, then you need to apologize to that Bureau of Immigration officer. Unfortunately, you have to find that Bureau of Immigration officer. You have to hand in your apology so that, the government would know that you are sincere, that you'll not do it again. There is a continuing obligation that the foreigners, when they are in the Philippines, they will respect the laws of the Philippines, and they will respect the public officials. So if you're not doing that, then they will exclude you, or they will bar you from entering the Philippines. So going back, if you have been unruly or disrespectful to the Bureau of Immigration officer, then as part of your attachment in the letter of lifting, you write the receiving copy of the apology letter. It will also help that, you have a good moral character, where you are from. You have a letter of recommendation, perhaps, with people within the community, that you are a good neighbor, you've been helping out, so that it would add up to your case that you will no longer be rude or disrespectful when you try to enter the Philippines.
Okay, so how would a foreigner request for the lifting of his or her blacklisting when he cannot enter the Philippines in the first place?
Yeah, it is recommended you have to hire a lawyer to do that in your behalf, preferably those that are accredited with the Bureau of Immigration. You can also get a relative to do this for you, or if you're not relative, a representative via special power of attorney to file for the lifting of the blacklisting in your behalf. It is necessary that you have to show proof of relationship, because it can be a ground for the outright denial of your lifting, because, not every Tom, Dick, and Harry can file for you. You have to show the reason or the relationship between that person filing in your behalf and you, and why it's being filed for you. So that's why it's always not recommended that you have your counsel to do it for you.
So when a foreigner would file for the lifting of a blacklist order at the Bureau of Immigration, are there any related expenses that needs to be paid?
Yes. If you hire a lawyer, then of course the professional fees of that lawyer has to be settled for that lawyer to take on your case. And then there is a minimal fee of filing fee with the Bureau of Immigration. And then depending on your charge, for example, you left the country and asked that the payment of the overstaying fees be suspended, the Bureau of Immigration would want those back fees be settled first, right? Or once it has been approved, there can be a charge also that would be given under the order that you have to settle. Sometimes it can be 30,000, 50,000, depending on the order of the Bureau of Immigration.
So how long does it process takes in order for a lifting or the petition for the lifting of the black order?
Yep. When you try to collate your documents before you file, right, this takes a lot of time also, because you have to coordinate with your representative or your legal counsel. Like I said, for example, the reason of your blacklisting is indigency. Well, you have to collate your documents or proof of financial capacity, and it's recommended that these are certified true copies or apostilled. Those collation of documents would at least reach you maybe 2 months before you're ready to file with the Bureau of Immigration, because you don't want to file multiple times. When you file, you want it done correctly and completely. And if you are securing the services, if you just have a relative or representative, it is recommended that you have a special power of attorney, and that special power of attorney is apostilled, so that when you file, that representation or your relationship is attached to the lifting of the request to lift. And that would also take time. I think apostille would take you maybe at least 2 weeks or 3 weeks before you can get your apostille special power of attorney. And then when you all have these documents, when you're ready to file for your lifting of blacklist, the process can take at the minimum of 4 months to even 8 months. It depends on the discretion and the docket of the Bureau of Immigration. You don't want it to be released as soon as possible because likely it would be a denial. It would usually be denied if you just have a simple letter of lifting and you don't have any attachments. Like you don't show proof or you don't convince the Bureau of Immigration that why your blacklist order should be lifted. The longer it takes, the better chance for you to have it lifted because that would mean it's going through the process and vetting process and going through the different steps within the Bureau of Immigration for them to consider your blacklist being lifted.
All right. So we have assisted some clients for the lifting of their blacklist order. One thing that we have having a difficulty is those who are considered as sex offenders.
Yeah.
So in this kind of grounds of denial, what are the usual steps, or if the person can still be, considered for the lifting of the black order?
According to the rules, sex offenders cannot be granted entry. So it would be very difficult for you to have that blacklist order lifted. There is an exception, but it's very difficult to get. You have to go through the Department of Justice. And the Department of Justice should endorse your application before you can get this blacklist order lifted. Those clients that we've encountered facing blacklist would be one had difficulty in English skills because he was unable to express himself. There could have been a miscommunication at the time of entry that you seem to be shouting to the Bureau of Immigration officer that they could have considered it as being unruly or disrespectful, where in truth, you're just getting frustrated because you can't explain yourself. Or in one instance, there's a mistranslation in the Google Voice. And the way it was translated in the Google Voice in text, it was
Comes off as
disrespectful. Yeah, so that can also be a reason. Or there's another client who was blacklisted because he didn't have proof that he had relationship with, or he married a Filipino in the Philippines because he can't show proof of a marriage certificate, pictures, even though he was really married to a Filipino. Because he didn't have all these documents, when he was asked to present just a copy, then he was blacklisted. Or there is another client who was blacklisted because he claims to be married to a Filipino, but that Filipino, unfortunately, has been traveling multiple times with different foreigners. So in the record of the Bureau of Immigration, the supposed wife had apparently different boyfriends. So it casts doubt on the relationship with the foreigner visiting the Philippines. Even if that foreigner is not married, it claims to be to have a relationship with a Filipino. And the record of the Filipino girlfriend is recorded to have had multiple travels abroad with different or varying foreigners. And that, unfortunately, can be cause doubt as to the reason why this foreigner will be able to visit the Philippines. There is also an instance where the client's visa was revoked because she was part of those companies, POGO companies, that's PAGCOR. Those PAGCOR registrations were revoked, and thereby also revoking their working visa. So because of that, they are susceptible to being ordered with blacklist.
For our listeners, what are your recommendations or guidelines for their foreign relative, spouse, or say boyfriend or girlfriend when they enter in the Philippines and in order for them not to get into a blacklisting order?
When you enter the Philippines, there is a continuing obligation for you to follow the Philippine laws. You cannot be above the regular Filipino citizens. Actually, you're exacted with a more stringent rule. It's applied strictly to you because you are here in the Philippines as a visitor. So if the Filipinos can be put to jail, likely for you, right? Why would the Philippine government spend for your jail time, pay for your food while in jail when you could be deported, right? Can't do illicit activities. Can't be a prostitute. You can't be a fugitive from justice. You can't borrow a lot of money. And you can't defraud creditors because those are ground for blacklisting.
Okay. Sounds very informative.
But depressing. Yeah, but there is a solution so long as you're willing to wait. And you have to work with your lawyer so that you can give all the information that that lawyer needs to be able to successfully lift your order of blacklist.
So that's it for now.
Bye!